So welcome you to today's lecture. Now, before I start today's lecture, let me ask you if you have any doubts from the previous lectures. If you have any doubts, please feel free to discuss. Okay, if there are no doubts, then let me move to next module, which is on sufficient statistics, or the notion of sufficiency. Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let me start with the notion of sufficiency. You might have already done it in a very elementary form at your bachelor's level or in your previous course. And what we are going to do in this course is we'll still study sufficiency from scratch, but we'll go slightly deeper into the concept of sufficiency. For example, when you did at bachelor's level, you only did a definition, right? That conditional distribution of x1, x2, xn given t is independent of theta. Then I'll call t to be sufficient. But what is the meaning of all that? What is the philosophy behind all that? That is what we'll slightly touch upon in this course. So suppose I have a random vector x1, x2, xn. Now I'm not necessarily taking it to be random sample, because for random sample x1, x2, xn may be independent, will be independent. So I'm not assuming anything about x1, x2, xn. X is any random vector x1, x2, xn. It is from a population with distribution function f. Here P may be a parametric family. So this class of distributions may be a parametric family, or it may be a non-parametric family. If it is a parametric family, what does it mean? That means I know the functional form of f, except that it may have an unknown parameter theta associated with it. As it happens for the normal distribution, I know the functional form of the density. It is 1 upon square root 2 pi, let us say, if variance is 1 upon square root 2 pi, e to power minus half x minus theta whole square. So functional form is known, except that theta may be unknown. So that's such families are called the parametric families. Or I may have even a non-parametric family where f may be completely unknown. I may not know even the functional form of f. What may be known at the best is that f is a continuous or a discrete, and so on. So let's look at what is the goal in statistical inference problems that we discussed in the last lecture. Here I have to use the information contained in my sample x to make inferences about the unknown distribution function. Now note that to make valid inferences or to make meaningful inferences, it is important that my data is available to me in a very structured form. If it is available in a very haphazard manner, then I may not be able to derive or infer meaningful inferences. Especially when sample size is large, it may be difficult to interpret x1, x2, x. You have a huge data, right? N-dimensional data, and n is very large. So I may not be able to interpret this data very precisely. Yeah. Any doubt? So if that is the case, then the statistician may wish to summarize the information contained in the whole sample by computing some statistics, like sample mean or sample variance, etc. So what his goal at the first instance is to summarize the data. How does it summarize the data? So rather than considering the whole X, the statistician only considers some statistic associated with X. So any statistics T from a sample space to RK finds a form of data reduction. For example, you have a sample X1, X2, Xn. You just consider sample mean, it is a data reduction. Because from X1, you can evaluate X bar from X1, X2, Xn, but X1, X2, Xn cannot be gotten from X bar. So it is reduction in that sense, it is a data reduction. An experimenter who uses the statistics Tx rather than the observed sample X will treat two samples X and Y same if Tx is same as Ty. Because he's assuming that all the information which was contained in X has been squeezed into T. So that means if T's are same, he would treat the corresponding samples to be the same. That is what is being said over here. So let's talk about data reduction through a statistic T. Suppose my T is a statistic which is a function from sample space to RK. There is a given statistic. I define range of T by tau. So tau is nothing but T of chi. T of chi means range of chi, which is collection of all those T values which T can take. So says that collection of all those small T's says that Tx equal to T for some X belonging to T. So this is the whole range of values of T. Now note that the T forms a partition of chi into sets. AT, what is AT? I look at the various values which T can assume. T assumes value in capital tau, and I look at what are those X's which go to this T. I put all them into the set AT. So different values of T, for different values of T, I have a different sets of X which go to the same T. And I'm denoting that by T, and then I vary T over whole range of the values of T. So in that sense, this forms a partition. What does a partition means? Partition means that AS intersection AT would be phi empty set if S not equal to time. And that is very clear from the definition of a statistic, from a definition of a function. Because if S and T are different, AS has all those X's which go to S. AT has all those X's which go to T. S and T. And this is chi, and this is T of chi. Then S may go over here. Now, if there is a common element, then that would mean that that element goes to S as well as that goes to T. But then that violates the definition of function. That same point can go to S and same can go to T. So this is not admissible. Because in the definition of a function, same point cannot go to two different points. So in that sense, AS intersection AT would be phi. And since capital tau takes all the possible values of statistic T, and I sum it over tau AT, it gives me the whole sample space. So I look at all possible values of T and I look at their inverse images. So in that way, every statistic induces a partition of the sample space chi. As an example, suppose my sample space has 5 points, x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. My statistic T says that it takes value T1, T2, T3, 3 different values. T1 is assumed by x1 and x4. T2 is assumed by x2 and x3. And T3 is assumed by x5. So what are the partition sets over here? What is my tau? Tau is collection of all those values which T can take. So T1, T2, T3. For each T1, T2, T3, I get a partition set. What is a T1? AT1 is collection of all those x's for which t takes value t1. T takes value t1 for x1 and x4. So AT1 is x1 and x4. What is AT2? T2 value is assumed by x2 and x3. So AT2 is x2 and x3. What is AT3? T3 value is assumed only by x5 to t. AT3 is x5. So you can see that they are distinct, sorry, they are disjoint, and their union is the whole sample space, which is x1, x2, x3. So every statistic T defines a partition of a sample space. Now the statistic T summarizes the data. So rather than reporting the entire sample X, it only reports the values of Tx. It all equivalently only reports these partition sets. Our goal is to summarize the data, that is data reduction, through a statistic. So it is important that you reduce the data, but reduction should not be done blindly. You see, one way to get reduction of data is you just put all the data into garbage. You have achieved the maximum possible reduction. There is no data. But by doing so, you have lost all the information which you had. So you would like to reduce the data, but not at the cost of information which is contained in the data. So our goal is to summarize the data X through a statistic such that no important information about F that is contained in X is discarded. And all the information or all the really irrelevant information which was contained in X about F is discarded. So all the irrelevant or redundant information which you had in the data, that should be discarded, and all the relevant information should be retained. That is what the idea is. So that leads us to the concept of a sufficient statistic. That x1, x2, xn be a random vector which has a joint distribution function f. A statistic T, or equivalently its partition ATT induced by T, is said to be sufficient for P, F, or P if for any T belonging to the range of T, the conditional distribution of X, given T is equal to T, should be independent of theta, or it should be independent of F. For any fixed value of T, which a statistic T can take, the conditional distribution of X given T is equal to T, that is independent of F or theta, then I say that my statistic T is sufficient for F or sufficient for P. Now, when I'm dealing with a parametric family, my P is determined through theta only, because functional form is known. In such a situation, if X is sufficient, Tx is sufficient for P, I would say that equivalently, that Tx is sufficient for theta. Then I'm dealing with a parametric family, because your theta determines the F. Now, a natural question arises that how does this definition ensures that a statistic T, which is sufficient by this definition, does not lose any information. It contains all the information contained in the sample. Now, a way to judge that would be, if it contains all the information about the original data, then I should be able to get the original sample using T. When I say that I should be able to get original sample, it means to say, what I mean to say is, I should be able to generate the original sample, or I should be able to generate the data from the original population. That is what no loss of information means. So now suppose T is sufficient for P. And what I have to show, it has no loss of information. No loss of information I would show by showing that through T, I can generate the observations from the original population. So if I, through knowledge of T, I can generate the observations from the original population. That means T contains all the information about the population. So let's see how do we do that. So I define probability x1, x2, xn belonging to P, where P is any set, oral set, given Tx equal to T as nu TB. But that T is fixed, so I denote it by nu T, and this is where B is a Borel set in R. And so if you're not comfortable with the Borel set, you can assume that T is any subset of n-dimensional Euclidean space R. So I define this as nu TB. So as T varies over tau, this quantity varies. Now note that nu T does not depend on F or theta, because by definition, conditional distribution of x1, x2, xn when T is independent of theta. So this does not depend on F, and thus is completely known. So I completely know nu TB because I know the conditional distribution of x1, x2, xn given T. If you know the conditional distribution completely, you can generate it using samples from the computer, using your pseudo random number generators, and then you can find out this problem. So this nu TB would be completely known to us, as it does not involve any unknown parameter. Now let T be the distribution function of the sufficient statistic T. Then I'm trying to show how do I generate the observation from the original population. My original data was x1, x2, xn belonging to B. I use the Bayes theorem or theorem of total probability. It is not a Bayes theorem, it is theorem of total probability. I write down this in terms of a conditional one. So probability of x1, x2, xn belonging to T given T is equal to T. And then I sum over all possible values of T, which in the case of continuous is integral, times probability of T, which is dgt. Right? In the discrete case, it would be summation. I'm writing dgt just to make a distinction that in the case of discrete, it would be summation. In the case of continuous, it would be integral. But what is this? This is nu TB that I completely know, that is completely known to you. What is dgt? It is a distribution of T. So what it says, if I know the distribution of T, which is through dgt, then I can get the original sample x1, x2, xn. How? Just take integral over nu TB dgt, because this is completely known to us. So if this was known to you, you can get the original sample. So thus one can get the distribution of x1, x2, xn from the distribution of Tx. So how does one generate? Yeah, I need out.
Sorry, sir. So, I have a question from the definition of sufficiency. Can you please go to the previous page?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, suppose I deal with the parametric family, then and I find out the conditional distribution of x given T. Sir, if it is independent of theta, then I can conclude that and the T is sufficient for theta. But sir, in the general case, which you mentioned in the first paragraph under definition, that does not depend, no, sir, here only, does not depend on F, the one you underlined with red.
Yeah.
Sir, then just by looking at the conditional distribution, how can we detect whether it is independent of F? Because F is also a function of the random variable. Means, I mean, it also is a function of X or something.
No, what is your question? How do you, by looking at the conditional distribution, how do you find out that it is independent of T? Okay. So,
F.
Okay, so let us consider an example. A parametric family, you don't have any problem, right?
Yes, because that contains, if that doesn't contain theta, then we can say it's independent.
So now suppose x1, x2, xn. is a random sample. Let me denote random sample by RS from continuous distribution with distribution function f and PDF small. And let us say x1, x2, xn are the order series. Now, in this case, I'll show that these order statistics are. So let us look at probability that x1. So suppose order statistics is given, right? So x1 is equal to, let us say, t1, and xn is tn, right? That is given to you. So I'm finding out the conditional distribution of sample given this thing. What would be this conditional probability? So let us say x1 is equal to x1, xn is equal to xn. Given the order statistics, can you tell me what would be this? Your order
So is
statistics.
it 1 by n factorial?
Yeah, because if order statistics are given, then you know that original samples have to be some permutation of T1, T2, Tn.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because it cannot be anything else.
Yes,
Because
sir.
these order statistics are whole of x1, x2, xn.
Yes, yes, yes.
And since it is a random sample, that means it is IID, each of those permutations should have a same probability. Because x1, x2, xn are IID. So it would be 1 by factorial n. You can derive it otherwise also. Otherwise, you can always discuss it with me if you want a very rigorous argument of this. If x1, x2, xn is a permutation of I'm not able to write down very clearly, but I think you can. Is a permutation of T1, T2, Tn and 0 other. Right? What does permutation means? It is T1, T2, Tn permuted in some way. So there will be factorial n permutation of T1, T2, Tn. Each has probability 1 by factorial n. So if you sum it, total probability is 1. So it is a proper probability distribution. Does this distribution depends on f? Right hand side?
No, sir, because it's just a number. And
Yeah,
f
there is no
not a
f
function.
over here. There is no
Yes,
f
sir.
over here.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
So this is independent of. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Understood.
Right. Even if you look at the whole sample, let's look at probability that x1 is equal to x1, xn is equal to xn. Given that x1 is equal to t1, xn is equal to t. I'm looking at a joint PDF of x1, x2, xn given that itself. What would be this? This would be 1 only when this small x1, x2, xn is same as t1, t2, tn, right?
Yes, sir.
0 otherwise. Does this depend on t?
No, sir. There's no f here.
So in fact, you have done 2 examples by asking that questions. One is, if you have the whole sample is always sufficient, right? This proves that whole sample is always sufficient because whole sample, given whole sample is, its distribution is independent of f.
Yes, sir. Exactly, sir.
You've also done that if x1, x2, xn is a random sample from a continuous distribution, then order statistic is a sufficient. You have done it just using the definition. Does that clarify your doubt?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Thank you, sir.
So what it says is you can generate original observations if you know the distribution of t. Now, this all is theoretical, looks very nice, but if you try to sell it to a practitioner, he says, "Why I find these integrals and everything too difficult to digest. Tell me an algorithm that if I know the value of t, I can get the original sample." And that is what I'll do next. Conducting observation of sample from the population using just the observed value of sufficient sets. So let me do a discussion for a discrete distribution. So let t be a sufficient set. then I know that for any observed value small t of capital T, the conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T does not depend on. So I know completely the conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T. Now, if I know the conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T, I can always generate observations from this using my computer. Right? You might have already seen. Can you generate observations from uniform 0, 1? Yes or
Yes,
no?
sir.
Right? You use it very often, right? You might have done it in many courses. Can you generate observations from normal 0, 1?
Yes, sir.
So that means if your distribution is known, it does not involve any parameter, you can always generate observations using the computer. So that means if T is sufficient, then I can generate observations from conditional distribution of x given T because it does not involve any unknown parameter. Is that clear? So I can always generate observations from conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T because it doesn't have any unknown parameter. So distribution is completely known to me. For example, in this case, I can always generate observations from this distribution. Right? Because if T is known to me, so suppose T was known to n is equal to 3, T is equal to 1, 2, 3, you look at. What you do is you throw a die. If die comes at number 1, you take observation to be 1, 2, 3. Again, if it comes to be 2, which has a probability 1 by 3, sorry, 1 by 6, which has a probability 1 by 6, you take it to be 1, 3, 2, and so on. Each of them with the same probability, so which is equivalent to throwing a die, right? So you can generate observations like this. In fact, that you can do. For that, you don't even need a computer, right? For n is equal to 3. Because for n is equal to 3, it says it is nothing but a uniform distribution over the integers 1 to 6, right? X1 was 1, x2 was 2, x3 was 4. So if number 1 comes in throwing a die, I take x1, x2, x3. If 2 comes, I can take x1, x3, x2, and so on. Each of them has the same probability. You can use it using computers as well. So let T be a sufficient statistic, then for any T, the conditional distribution of x given T does not depend on F, or it is completely known. So using computers, one can generate an observation or a sample from the conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T. So one can generate observation from the conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T because T is sufficient. Now suppose that Tx equal to T is observed. Then how do you generate? I generate one observation from the conditional distribution of Tx given T. So I generate one observation small y from this. Let y be the corresponding random value. So what does that mean? My probability that y is equal to y is how much? It has been generated from conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T. This is same as probability that x equal to y given Tx equal to T. Right? So it says suppose Tx equal to T is observed. So if T is observed, then what I do is I generate one observation y. I'm denoting corresponding random variable as capital Y from the conditional distribution of x given Tx equal to T. What does that mean? I've got a random variable y whose distribution is same as conditional distribution of x Tx equal to T. Now what I would show is this y and original x have the same distribution. X has the same distribution as y, which would show that I have got an observation from the original population. So I have the same information. It may not be exactly same as the original sample, but I can always generate one observation from the original population. And all the observations from the original population have the same information because they have been chosen at random. So let us look at how y has the same distribution as x. So probability y is equal to x. I apply the theorem of total probability. Theorem of total probability on set of all possible values of t's. So summation t belonging to t. Probability y is equal to x. Tx equal to t, which is same as probability y is equal to x given Tx equal to t. Probability Tx equal to t. And probability y is equal to x given tx equal to t is same as probability x equal to x given tx equal to t. Because, in fact, a better way to write down would be probability y is equal to y is same as probability x equal to y given t is equal to t, because they are coming from the same conditional distribution. Now, what is this? By theorem of total probability, this is same as probability x equal to x. So that means y has the same distribution as x. All right. So what you have been able to show is, using any realization of a sufficient series Tx, one can generate an observation y from the original distribution. Right? That is how you call T to be sufficient. Any question on this? This is slightly philosophical, but it tells you how to, in what sense T is sufficient. T is sufficient in the sense that given the knowledge of T, I can generate one observation from my original distribution. So that means T contains all the information about the original distribution, because I can generate as many observations as you want from that, given the value of T. Now, to see any question on this, try to digest this, and it's slightly philosophical, so it may take some time to digest, but don't bother about it. Give some thought to it. If you still you have issues, we can discuss it during discussion hour or during tutorials. Now let's look at some example. Let x1, x2 will be IID binomial 1 theta, where theta is 0 to 1 is unknown. X is x1, x2, x3. Then if I look at a joint PMF of x equal to x, this would be theta to the power k, 1 minus theta to the power 2 minus k, where k is same as x1 plus x2, which is nothing but number of ones among x1 and x2, because my x1 is 1 or 0. Binomial 1 theta means it is 1 or 0. So x1 plus x2 would be number of ones I get in x1 and x2. I look at t is equal to x1 plus x2, which is number of successes among two threads. I would show that if x1, x2 are IID binomial 1 theta, then x1 plus x2 is sufficient. So what I have to show is x1 plus x2, distribution of x1 plus x2 given t is independent. So for that, let us look at what the possible values statistic t can take. Since x1 and x2 are binomial 1 theta, my tau, which are the possible values of t, could be 0 or 1 or 2. What are my partition sets? Is 0. Collection of all those x1, x2, which correspond to 0. 0 would come only when x1 is 0 and x2 is 0. My A1, collection of all those x1, x2, which give me x1 plus x2 as 1. It would have a 2 points, 0, 1, 0. What would be A2? A2 is collection of all those x1, x2, such that x1 plus x2 is 2. It would. These are the partition sets. I try to look at. So my sample points could be 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1. These are the possibilities of our sample. What are the corresponding t's here? 0, 1, 1, 2. I look at what is the probability that x equal to x, given tx equal to t. T could be 1, t could be 0, 1, or 2. Probability x equal to x, given tx equal to 0. Now, given tx equal to 0, I know that my x can take only one value, which is 0, 0. So it will be 1 for this sample point and 0 for all other sample points. Now, probability x equal to x and tx equal to 1. So let me look at, in general, what would be probability x equal to x given tx equal to t. It is same as probability that x1 is equal to x1, x2 is equal to x2. Intersection tx equal to t. That means x1 plus x2 t divided by probability that x1 plus x2 is equal to t. Now I know that x1 plus x2 is a binomial 2 theta. So this would be, first of all, now note that if this is small x1 and small x2 does not add to t, then this event cannot happen, because this event says that x1 plus x2 has to be same as x1 plus x2. So this would be 0 if x1 plus x2, sorry, x1 plus is not equal. If x1 plus x2 is t, then anyway these two events together imply this event. So what would be this? It would be same as only probability x1 is equal to x1, x2 is equal to x2, by probability x2 is equal to t if x1 plus x2 not equal to t. X2 is equal to t. Why? Because you know that if A implies B, A implies B means A is contained in B. Then, so if A implies B, then what would be probability of A intersection B? Anyone? If A implies B, then what would be probability of A intersection B?
Probability of A.
Yeah.
Probability of A, right? Because A implies B means A is contained in B, then probability of A intersection B would be probability. And that is what exactly is happening over here. If small x1 plus small x2 is same as t, then this event that x1 is equal to x1 and x2 is equal to x2 would imply that x1 plus x2 is same as small x1 plus small x2, which is t. So this would imply this. That is why intersection would be this. And what would be this? They are independent. X1 is equal to x1 and x2 is equal to x2 would be how much? Yes, theta to the power x1 plus x2. 1 minus theta to the power 2 minus x1 plus x2. Right? And x1 plus x2 would be binomial 2 theta, because x1 and x2 are binomial 1 theta. So that would be 2 choose t, right? Theta to the power t, 1 minus theta to the power 2 minus t. If x1 plus x2 is t, and this is t. This is also t. So they get cancelled, and you get 1 by 2 choose t, in fact. And this does not depend on theta. You can say it directly also, but if you want to put it in this way, when t is 1, then I know that what are the possible values x1 and x2 can take? If 0, 1, so 0, 1 and 1, 0, both will occur with probability half. Right? 2 choose 1, t is 1. So 1 by 2. 1 by 2. And 2 choose 2 is 1. So when t is 2, the only sample point is 1, 1. That would occur with probability 1. So you can see the conditional distribution of x given t is equal to t nowhere does not depends on theta. So this is independent of. This is independent of theta. This is. So your t is sufficient. Now by the same methodology, in fact, even if you had a sample x1, x2, xn, IID binomial 1 theta, you can show that, yes, I have given you a proof, except that now you have to go from x1, x2 to x1, x2, xn. Their summation xi is sufficient. Now the question is, how do you generate observations from the original distribution given the value of t? My t is value 0, 1, 2. So what it says is, if I observe my t to be 0, then what is my conditional distribution of x given t is equal to 0? It takes only one value, which is 0, 0 with probability 1. So it says if you observe t is equal to 0, you take your sample to be 0, 0. If t is equal to 1 is observed, then what you do is you take 0, 1 with probability half and 1, 0 with probability half. Or in other words, if you observe the value of sufficient statistic x1 plus x2 to be 1, then what you do is you take a coin. If head turns up, you take your sample to be 0, 1. If tail comes off, which has a probability half, you take sample to be 1, 0. Whereas if t is equal to 2 is observed, then you take your original sample to be 1, 1, because all others have a probability 0. And you have generated the observation from the original population. So there is no loss of information. From t to get y1, y2 IID binomial v theta, 1 theta, we proceed as follows. If t is equal to 0 is observed, which is this case, my original sample is 0, 0. Y1, y2 is 0, 0 with probability 1. If t is equal to 2 is observed, my original sample is 1, 1 with probability 1. Whereas if t is equal to 1 is observed, I take 0, 1 and 1, 0, each with probability half. And then just you can do a simple algebra. You can show that y1, y2 has the same distribution as x1, x2. Y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0 is same as x1, x2 is equal to 0, 0. Y1, y2 is equal to 1, 1 is same as probability that x1, x2 is equal to 1. Probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 1 is same as probability. Right? So x1, x2 has the same distribution as y1, y2. Right? I've shown it already before, but here in this particular example, I have illustrated this. Listen, y1, y2 is 0, 0 means y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0. Given t is equal to 0 plus probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0, t is equal to 1. Because t and then probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0. Intersection t is equal to 2. Because my t can only take 3 values, 0, 1, 2. So I've applied the theorem of total probability on possible values of t, which is same as probability y1, y2 is equal to t0. Now, note that if my t is 1, right, then y1, y2 takes value 0, 1 or 1, 0. So this probability would be 0, because if t is equal to 1, then y1, y2 is 0, 1 or 1, 0. So these probabilities would be 0. This is same as y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0. T is equal to 0, which is same as probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0. Given t is equal to 0 into probability t is equal to 0. This probability is 1. Y1, y2 is equal to 0. So this same as probability t is equal to 0. And probability t is equal to 0 means x1 plus x2 is equal to 0, which is same as x1, x2 is equal to 0. So probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 0 is same as probability x1, x2 is equal to 0. Similarly, probability y1, y2 is equal to 1, 1. I again apply the theorem of total probability on all possible values of t. So y1, y2 is equal to 1, 1, t is equal to 0, y1, y2 is equal to 1, 1, t is equal to 1, y1, y2 is equal to 1, 1, t is equal to 2. Now, I know that when t is 0, y1, y2 cannot be 1, 1. It has to be 0, 0, because that is how I have generated. T is equal to 0, then y1, y2 is 0. So this probability is 0. This probability may occur, this probability may occur. But I'm looking at 1, 1. And y1, y2 is 1, 1. If t is 1, then y1, y2 cannot be 1, 1. So that means only probability which contributes is this. Because t is 1, sorry, t is 2, then y1, y2 is 1. So t is 1, y1, y2 cannot be. T is 1, then y1, y2 is 0, 1 or 1, 0. So t is equal to 2, then y1, y2 is equal to 1, 1 is with probability 1. Probability t is equal to 2. So that is same as probability x1, x2 is equal to 1, which is same as probability t is equal to 2, which is same as x1, x2 is equal to 1. T is equal to 2 means probability, because if y1, y2 is 1, 1, t is equal to 2 already implies y1, y2 is equal to 1. So that is same as probability x1, x2. And then y1, y2 is equal to 0, 1 is same as probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 1. Given t is equal to, the intersection t is equal to 1, because other values will not arise. Because so probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 1, given t is equal to 1 into probability t is equal to 1. But probability y1, y2 is equal to 0, 1, given t is equal to 1, is a probability half. So that is half times probability t is equal to 1, which is same as half times probability t1 t is equal to 1 is how much? This probability half times probability x1 plus x2 is equal to 1. Half times probability x1, x2 is equal to 1 means probability x1 is 0 and x2 is equal to 1, or x1 is 1 and x2 is 0. Right? That is what it is. But they are independent. So this is same as half times probability x1 is equal to 0, which is 1 minus theta, into probability x2 is equal to 1, which is theta. Plus probability x1 is equal to 1 is theta, and x2 is equal to 0 is 1 minus theta. So it becomes 2 times theta into 1 minus theta, which becomes theta into 1 minus theta. It is same as probability x1, x2 is equal to 0, 1, because that is same as probability x1 is equal to 0 into probability x2 is equal to 1. Now similarly, probability y1, y2 is equal to 1, 0 is same as probability x1, x2 is equal to 1, 0 into 1 minus theta. What I have seen is probability that y1, y2 takes a certain value is same as probability x1, x2 takes the same value. It means that x1, x2 has the same distribution as y1, y2. So what I have done is I have shown that given the value of sufficient statistic, you can generate observation from the original distribution. So it is in that sense, a sufficient statistic does not lose any information. Now let's consider one example for the continuous case. Now suppose I have a random sample from normal theta 1. This is a theta. Normal theta 1. I will show that X is sufficient. Let us try to show that how. That P be an orthogonal matrix with first row as 1 by root n, 1 by root n, 1 by root n. My P is, let us say 1 by root n. 1 by. Suppose my first row is P21, P22, P2n, Pn1, Pn2. This is an orthogonal matrix. First, let me ask a question. What would be Pi1 plus Pi2 plus Pin? Anyone? That means row sum of each of these row sums. How much would be that? Can anyone tell? Given that P is orthogonal? Anyone? Quick answer?
0.
It has to be 0. Why? Because since it is orthogonal, this inner product has to be 0. Inner product of each of them with the first row has to be 0. So for example, if the second row, you take the inner product with the first one, it is P21 into 1 by root n, P22 by 1 by root n, P2n by 1 by root n. That should be 0 because P is orthogonal. So rows are orthogonal, which means P21 plus P22 plus P2n is 0. Same would hold for every row from 2 to n, except the first row. So I'm considering my orthogonal matrix whose first row is 1 by root n, 1 by root n. I consider the transformation y is equal to px. Probably y is equal to px. When I multiply it by x, I get x1 upon root n, x2 upon root n, xn upon root n. So which is x1 plus x2 plus xn by root n. And x1 plus x2 plus xn is an x bar. So an x bar by root n, it becomes root n x bar. And then let us say some y2, y3, yn, and so on. Let us look at what is the distribution of y. You know that if you apply an orthogonal matrix to a multivariate normal distribution, x1, x2, xn, look at it has an n-dimensional vector with mean as theta, mean vector as theta, 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 which I can write down as theta into 1. What would be the variance covariance matrix? Right? So these are multivariate normal distributions. Now I know that if I have a multivariate normal distribution, I apply any matrix P, then Px would also be multivariate normal distribution. So Px would again be normal. What will be the mean of Px? P times mu. P times mu means each theta is same. So it would be root n mu 0, 0, 0. Right? Why? Because P times expected value of Px would be same as P times theta times 1. Right? Which is theta times, theta is a fixed quantity, P times 1. What is the P times 1? P times 1 means I have multiplied this by a vector 1, 1, 1, 1, so on. So if I multiply it, the first row would be 1 by root n, 1 by root n, 1 by root n, n times it would be root n. Second would be P21, P22, P2n. That sum is 0. So each of them would be 0. Which would be root n theta 0, 0, 0. And you know that what is the variance of y? P times variance covariance matrix of X into P transpose. Variance covariance matrix of X is I, so it is P times P transpose, which is I. So Y, so does X and Y have the same information? Why? Because from X you can get Y to PX. From Y you can get X through X is same as P transpose X, right? Because P is orthogonal. So from Y I can get X, from X I can get Y. So Y and X have the same information. But then considering the distribution of X is same as considering the distribution of Y. But if you look at Y, in Y, Y2 to Yn have no information about theta. Only Y1 has an information, which is root n x bar. Does X and Y have the same information about theta? Since Y is equal to Px and P is non-singular. Moreover, Y1, Y2, Yn are independent with Y1 having distribution root n mu 1 and Y2 to Yn are IID normal 0, 1. This suggests that all the information about mu is contained in Y because Y2 to Yn are independent of Y and they do not contain any information about mu because they are IID normal 0. So this suggests that all the information about mu is contained in Y, which is root n x bar. That means equivalently x bar contains all the information about mu. So interestingly, as the following argument shows that x bar is sufficient for mu. So I take just one more minute to show that x bar is sufficient. So consider the distribution of x given x bar. I have to show that this does not depend on mu. But x is same as P transpose Y. From here, Y is same as Px, so x is same as P transpose Y because Y. Given what is x bar? X bar is y1 upon root n because y1 is the first component here is root n x bar. So x bar is y1 by root n. Now I know that distribution of y1, y2, yn given y1 does not depend on mu, right? Because that is what you have seen. Distribution of y1, y2, yn given y1 does not depend on mu because that distribution is same as distribution of y2 to yn and y2 to yn are IID normal 0, 1. This means distribution of any function of y1, y2, yn given y1 will not depend on mu. So that means distribution of P transpose Y given y1 will not depend on mu. That means distribution of P transpose Y given any function of y1 will not depend on mu. Given y1 by root n does not depend on mu. But P transpose Y is x, y1 upon root n is x bar, so that means distribution of x given x bar does not depend. Which by definition shows that x bar is sufficient. Now this example suggests how to generate the original sample given the value of x bar. How do you generate the original sample? What you do is you generate n independent normal distribution. The first one from normal root n x bar 1, second one from normal 0, 1, third one from normal 0, nth one also not from normal 0 because they are IID. They're independent. First one is only root n theta, normal root n theta 1. Rest are from normal 0. They are independent. So I can generate observation from this using my. So I just generate y2 to y, right? Because the distribution of y1, y2, yn would be same as distribution of. Just look at distribution of x given x bar is same as distribution of y1, y2, yn. From this, I can I know that I can get the distribution of x given x bar from the distribution of y1, y2, yn given y1. But distribution of y1, y2, yn is same as distribution of y2 to y. Right? Because given the value of y1, I can get the value of y2 to y, which are IIT normal 0, which I can generate from the normal distribution. And that way I can get the original. But let me stop over here. Try to digest it, slightly philosophical, but very interesting. To argue that is a very nice argument to show that in what sense x is sufficient. Why statistic t is sufficient. In your bachelor's level, you only did the definition. But you did not understand it is sufficient in what sense. Now here you understand that it's sufficient in the sense that if I know the value of t, I can generate an observation from the original population. So it is in that sense I am not losing any information. T has all the information. Because once you know the value of t, you can get the observation from the original population. So let me just stop over here. I'll suggest that try to digest it by going through it again and again. If you still have a doubt, we can discuss it next time if you have any specific doubt. Otherwise, we'll move further on some more topics on sufficiency, minimal sufficiency. Okay, so if any one of you have a question, you may stay back. You may stay back. Others may leave. So I see Sagar. Are you there, Sagar? Sahil?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah, any questions?
Sorry.
You have any questions to ask?
No, sir.
Okay, then you may leave.
Okay, sir.
So if nobody has any questions, then I'm calling off the meeting.